The US and Iran step back from the brink of possible war. President Trump signals he won't retaliate with force for missile strikes on Iraqi bases that are housing American forces. Investigators begin reading the black box from the plane that crashed after takeoff from Tehran, killing all 176 people on board. Despite early rumours, there's no evidence it was shot down.
I did not escape justice. I fled injustice.
And the former Nissan boss Carlos Ghosn speaks for the first time publicly since he fled house arrest in Japan. From Lebanon, he tells journalists he was the victim of a plot. Those are our top headlines here on France 24. I'm Alexander Orcott. Now, tensions between Washington and Tehran appear to have eased this Wednesday. The US president said no Americans were harmed after Iran fired missiles at military bases in Iraq, and he welcomed signs that the Islamic Republic appears to be standing down. The comments cooled down what threatened to become an all-out war following the killing of top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani last Friday. France 24's correspondent in Tehran, Catalina Gomez, says people there are now sleeping more easily.
Whatever it happens, the tension is down, but the same problems between Iran and United States are there. And especially now that Mr. Trump has already said that he's going to impose more sanctions in Iran. Which more sanctions can he impose in Iran, in a country who has the toughest sanctions on earth in a country? Then people are asking many questions, expecting to see what is going to be the next step of this tension between these two countries. Don't forget that before this killing of Qasem Soleimani happened, they were having some conversation. Rouhani went to Japan to have some conversations. There were some people coming to Tehran. Then there was something going on, and people were really thinking that it was creating a new bridge in order for the negotiation, at least for the talks between America, the United States, and Iran. Then let's see what is going to happen. There is a lot of expectation, but I tell you that people will sleep a little bit more relaxed tonight than last night, for sure.
Now, another news from Iran. The authorities have now found the black box from the Ukrainian International Airlines flight PS752 that crashed shortly after takeoff from Tehran airport. They say they'll now work closely with the Ukrainians to find out what exactly happened when the Boeing 737 went down on Monday, killing all 176 passengers and crew. Maria Sofos has the story.
Relatives and loved ones of those who died visiting the scene of the crash. Their despair at the loss visible.
My son, my son. I drove him this morning. I drove him to the airport. An hour later, I was sitting in the car and I heard a huge explosion. Then it was over.
Iranian officials said they suspected a mechanical issue brought down the 3.5-year-old Boeing 737-800 aircraft. Ukrainian officials initially agreed, but later backed away and refrained from offering a cause while the investigation is ongoing. Dozens of Canadians were killed in the crash, including newlyweds and a family of 4. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau vowed that his government would get answers.
In the coming days and weeks, our government will continue to work closely with its partners to ensure that this crash is thoroughly investigated. Canadians have questions, and they deserve answers. Minister Champagne will be speaking with the Iranian Foreign Minister and conveying the need for a thorough investigation into this fatal crash.
Canada's Transport Minister Marc Garneau said he could not speculate, but added that soon after the plane's departure, contact was lost. He said the aircraft's black box information is needed to shed further light on the crash.
Now, the international fugitive Carlos Ghosn has spoken publicly for the first time this Wednesday since his escape from house arrest in Japan. Now in Lebanon, the ex-Nissan boss said he was fleeing a nightmare and vowed to defend his name wherever he can get a fair trial. Speaking passionately for more than 2 hours in a room packed with journalists, he portrayed his 2018 arrest as a plot to prevent the Japanese car maker ceding more power to French partner Renault.
Some of our Japanese friends thought the only way to get rid of the influence of Renault on Nissan is to get rid of me, which unfortunately they were right, because when you see exactly what's happening today, where Renault has very little influence on what's going on in Nissan, even though they put a nice face on what's taking place. You know exactly that the Japanese have the right analysis by saying, we get rid of him, we will get much more autonomy for Nissan.
Well, France 24's correspondent Leila Mulana Allen is in Lebanon. She earlier told us how people in the country have been reacting to those words.
The press conference was avidly followed by Lebanese locals, many of whom were convinced by Ghon's assertion that he was a victim of a conspiracy staged by his former company and what he called a rigged Japanese justice system.
It's clear that it was a political affair. He was very convincing. The measures they took, including the ban on seeing his family, are unjust.
I think he is welcome here as a Lebanese.
He managed to convince me at his press conference. But we will have to wait for justice to do its job.
In a twist worthy of the dramatic tale, as the event was happening, Lebanon's judiciary summoned Ghon to appear at the Palace of Justice to be formally questioned about the charges and his escape. While Lebanese authorities show no sign that they will send the fugitive back, despite repeated requests from Japan, another option is for him to be tried in Lebanon. But some argue with his wealth and connections in the country, a conviction is unlikely.
We're waiting to see what the Lebanese and Japanese courts say before making a judgment.
Carlos Ghon laid out his side of the story on Wednesday, saying he finally had the opportunity to defend himself. Mixed reactions from the Lebanese public. And the next hurdle is whether Lebanese authorities will still be willing to defend him after a panel of judges questions him on Thursday. After that, his fate may rest on just how far Japan is willing to go to get him back.
Hong Kong police have dispersed fresh protests Wednesday night close to a shrine to Alex Chow, a student who fell to his death from a multi-storey car park during a police operation in November. The territory's been in the grips of pro-democracy movement since June that began over a now withdrawn bill that would have allowed extradition to mainland China. They've now grown to a broader democratic demand. China's announced the emergence of a new virus related to the deadly SARS and MERS outbreaks from 2002 and 2012, respectively. It's believed a new coronavirus has caused a cluster of more than 50 pneumonia cases in the central city of Wuhan, though more research is needed, it said. The Chinese authorities said the latest pathogen is causing severe illness in some patients, but does not appear to pass easily from person to person. Now to the UK, and Prince Harry and his wife Meghan have announced they plan to step back as senior members of the British royal family, stunning many observers. Buckingham Palace issued the statement in which the Duke and Duchess of Sussex made clear their intent to be financially independent and balance their time between the UK and North America. In a second statement hours later, the palace said, "We understand their desire to take a different approach, but these are complicated issues that will take time to work through," hinting that the first message may have come as a surprise to some in the household.
It was a fairy tale wedding, but happily ever after was slightly more elusive. Following a difficult year, the Sussexes announced they will be stepping down from full-time life as senior royals. They'll become financially independent from the crown and spend more time in North America.
This year has begun in a way that is not only completely unprecedented, but potentially it undoubtedly has very serious consequences.
In a documentary for ITV, the royal couple spoke of their struggles with the intense media scrutiny of British tabloids, which criticised their expensive lifestyle and exposed an alleged rift between the royal couple and the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, as well as claiming that Meghan was difficult to work with. Wednesday's announcement seemed to catch Buckingham Palace by surprise. It was followed by a much shorter statement a few hours later.
Discussions with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are at an early stage. We understand their desire to take a different approach, but these are complicated issues that will take time to work through.
Harry is Queen Elizabeth II's grandson and sixth in line to the British throne. He'd been expected to take on a bigger role as the Queen scales back her duties, but the Duke's future is now in doubt.
Stay tuned for more updates on France 24.